For those of you who love cheese, let's talk about how to incorporate cheese in a healthy way. Welcome to drashori.com. My name is Dr. Rashori. I'm a board-certified family medicine physician. Today we're going to talk about nutrition, which is the N part of my framework, which is the trend frame. Cheese is a concentrated product. It is a modified product. It can be a wonderful addition because it gives us saturated fat, which we need a little bit of. It gives us salt, which we need. It's a mineral. It gives us calcium, phosphorus, and even helps in the production of certain vitamins due to the prebiotics and bacteria that are in cheese. The problem with it is, of course, in our culture, especially in the US, not so much in other cultures, cheese is kind of at the forefront, and the quality is often not that great. So probably the first place I would start is when you shop for cheese, guys, go get great quality cheese. Go find a good quality cheese shop. Get the kind of cheese that will last you in the fridge for a little bit, not the kind of cheese that's going to go rotten in 2 minutes. Certain cheeses you can keep out. Most cheeses you probably have to keep in a very cool place or ideally in the refrigerator. The main concern with cheese is the saturated fat. But if you're having your cheese in portioned amounts, it's not a risk. It's not a concern. If, of course, you're at very high risk for cardiovascular disease due to high ApoB, that's something to consider. For certain people, because it's a high protein content food, for example, when we look at ricotta and cottage cheese, it's a high protein content cheese. If you are at risk for diabetes or other things, then calorie density is something to consider. So again, just have it in a smaller amount, have it with some veggies and other like grains, etc. The salt is another issue. Salt is concentrated in many cheeses. You can get something like a Swiss cheese, which is wonderful because it generally doesn't have a lot of salt. And certain manufacturers of cheeses are going to make other versions with not as much salt. You can, for example, get feta and rinse it off, and it might not be as salty as other cheeses. Goat cheese, you can get the same. It's softer, so you can't rinse it as well. And the next thing we worry about is the quality of the milk. So certain individuals just don't do very well with cow milk. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. The theory is that it's the A1 casein versus the A2 casein. Certainly if you pick sheep or goat milk cheeses, they're going to have a little bit more of the A1, a little bit less of the A2. There are dairy cow. There's cow milk that is less in A2, so you can certainly find that as well. So experiment with that, especially if you're experiencing symptoms of inflammation or intestinal issues, or you break out whenever you have cheese. The last point when it comes to cheese is, of course, getting bloated, diarrhea, nausea, acid reflux from lactose intolerance or some version of it. And of course, in this case, you really want the hard-aged cheeses, the cheeses that have been aged for a long time. Parmigiano, those kind of cheeses are going to do really well, right? They're just have very little lactose left in them. Remember that the harder cheeses that are really tasty and kind of salty, you need a little bit. You can just sprinkle a little bit on your food and it's going to go a long way. Always design your dishes in a way that they're already pretty flavorful, that you generally just need a little bit of cheese on top. And if you're going to have cheese, have it with a lot of other good quality things. Sitting there with a giant cheese platter and only having that, on occasion, it's probably fine. But if you do that on a regular basis, it's a bit of a problem. Certain people are going to have a little bit of problem with the tyramine and histamines in cheeses. So some of these more aged cheeses are going to have that amount concentrated. So pay attention to that, and you might notice, for example, things like inflammation, joint pains, rashes, headaches, migraines. If you're sensitive to that, you can experiment with different types of cheeses that are a little bit less aged. So go out there, enjoy your cheese if you're into that. But again, remember that portion control and the quality really makes a difference. Check out drashori.com. Thanks for tuning in.